They said love makes fools of us all. But I remember the day they laughed at Evelyn Hart, and I remember how the mountains laughed back. The wind was high that morning in Eagle's Hollow, tossing dust across the chapel steps, where Evelyn stood in her pale blue dress beside Calder Boone, the man everyone called the Mountain Hermit. His hat was old, his hands rough, his eyes quiet and kind. Behind them, the town whispered like dry leaves, women hiding smiles behind gloved hands, men shaking their heads. She could have had any man, someone said, and she chose him. The church bell rang, but the laughter of the town drowned it out. Days later, she walked through the crooked streets, her chin high, but her heart trembling beneath the lace of her collar. The townsfolk parted to let her pass, their stares sharp as needles. Martha Dunn, the widow who ran the general store, gave her a polite nod, but couldn't hold her gaze for long. From the saloon porch, a man's voice drifted through smoke and laughter. Guess she traded silk for sawdust. That night, high in the pines, she sat on the porch of the cabin Calder had built with his own hands. He sat near the steps, sharpening an axe, his face half lit by the fire inside. He didn't speak of the cruelty below. Instead, he poured a cup of coffee and set it beside her, his touch soft but steady. She looked out at the valley lights and realized she traded the world's applause for one man's quiet kindness. Yet still, shame burned in her chest heavier than the mountain wind. Winter arrived like judgment, hard, white and endless. Evelyn's fine Eastern dresses were useless now. She learned to mend boots, to haul water before it froze, to milk the goat with trembling hands that blistered and bled. Calder never mocked her softness. When she failed, he fixed what she broke and said nothing. During a blizzard that sealed their door with snow, she sat by the fire and wept. "I don't belong here," she whispered. Calder's shadow stretched long on the cabin wall. "You do now," he said simply, the words like an oath. She learned his silences held more care than most men's speeches. He could predict storms by listening to the wind. He carved small animals out of wood and left them on the mantel when he couldn't find words. Slowly, she learned to read his quiet ways. The ache in her heart softened. She began to understand that love doesn't need witnesses. It only needs endurance. When spring came, the snow melted into silver streams that sang through the ravines. Evelyn planted a garden. One morning, Calder surprised her with a cedar fence built around it. Her laughter came out shaky, as if she'd forgotten the sound. That evening, as she hung laundry, she watched him from afar, bare arms working under the gold light of the setting sun, the sky behind him bruised with purple. For the first time, she felt warmth that had nothing to do with fire. Later that night, thunder rolled over the mountains, and they sat together by the hearth. She told him about her old life, the men who courted her beauty, not her soul, and the cold homes built on fine manners. Calder listened without interrupting, then said, "You deserve peace, not performance." His words sank deeper than she could answer. The fire cracked softly between them, and for a moment, she thought perhaps this was what love really sounded like. Silence, shared and unbroken. By midsummer, the town sent men up into the mountains to hunt for silver. Sheriff Amos Pike led them, boasting in the saloon that there were veins of gold somewhere near Boone's Ridge. The gossip began again. "That Boone fellow knows these hills better than anyone," Henry Clay sneered. Shame he wasted on her. When they passed by the cabin, Evelyn stood on the porch beside Calder, chin lifted. The sheriff tipped his hat and said, "You must miss civilized company, Mrs. Boone." She smiled faintly. "Civilization's a matter of the heart, Sheriff, not location." The men laughed and rode off, but Calder's eyes followed them up the trail, worry clouding their calm blue. That night, he couldn't sleep. He stood outside, watching the dark ridge. "Some things buried in these mountains ain't meant to be found," he murmured, but when she asked what he meant, he only shook his head. 2 days later, the earth shuddered beneath them. Smoke rose from the ridge. The miners stumbled back to town, half mad with fear, babbling about tunnels collapsing and a hidden vault unearthed. Lockboxes stamped with the initials B.B. Evelyn found Calder by the river, scrubbing dirt from his hands. "You knew," she said quietly. He nodded. "My father built those mines." Boone and Brothers Silver Company. Left it all to rot. She stared, the truth dawning slow as sunrise. The man the town called Simple was heir to the fortune that once built Eagle's Hollow. Why hide it, she whispered. Because money made monsters of my kin, he said. I just wanted to live like a man, not a name. Her eyes glistened. Down in the valley, the same people who'd mocked them were now digging for pieces of his family's gold. But Calder only turned back toward the cabin, toward the life he'd built with his hands, his peace unshaken. That peace did not last. One night, Henry Clay and his men returned to the ridge, lanterns swinging greedily through the dark. A spark caught in the dry brush. Within minutes, the forest burned. Evelyn woke to the smell of smoke, the sky bleeding red through the windows. Calder ran into the fire line before she could stop him. She followed, calling his name through the roar of wind and flame. The night slowed to a heartbeat, the fire glowing like molten gold, devouring the trees, the air itself screaming. Then through the haze, Calder appeared, staggering beneath the weight of a wounded miner across his shoulders. Evelyn ran to him, tears cutting clean lines through ash on her cheeks. Together they fell to the ground as the flames crackled around them. When the fire finally died, the mountain lay black and broken. The town gathered in silence, staring at the man they once mocked. Calder Boone, the hermit, the fool, the simple man, had saved them all. In the days that followed, word spread of what had been found in the hills, a fortune buried, untouched, belonging to the Boone name. Calder could have claimed it, could have rebuilt the mines, could have made Eagle's Hollow bow before him. But he didn't. He left it all to the mountain, saying only, some treasures ain't meant for hands, only hearts. The laughter that once followed Evelyn wherever she walked was gone now, replaced by nods of respect that came too late to matter. Months later, when the valley turned green again, she sat beside Calder on the porch as dawn broke over the peaks. The air smelled of pine and new rain. Funny, she said softly, they laughed when I chose you. Calder smiled, that quiet, knowing smile. They needed something to laugh at, he said. We just needed something to live for. She leaned against his shoulder as sunlight spilled across the land. The mountains stood silent, watching. And the old voice returns, fading like a memory. In a world that worshipped gold and names, she found her kingdom in the quiet heart of a man who wanted nothing. And that was everything. The camera pans across the valley. Ashes turn to wildflowers, fire scars healing into green. Then a whisper for the soul. Maybe love isn't about choosing what shines. Maybe it's about finding the one who stays when the fire comes. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you, dignity grows in silence, love in small acts, and worth is never measured by gold. If you believe that too, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from Frontier Myths.